Ladies and gentlemen, super excited to have this next guest back on our show. In all honesty, this guy is one of the most knowledgeable and respectable people in the world of combat sports, being a former high-level UFC MMA fighter, champion in several organizations, UFC Hall of Fame, TV commentator for Pride as well as many other great organizations, referee, tremendously respected actor, stuntman, and if it's there to be done in the world of combat sports and even combat entertainment, this man has done it. Happy to have Mr. Frank Trigg with us. Welcome back to the show, Frank.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So many things I want to ask you about, and there's almost never enough time. But I'm going to try to bring them in and give you a chance to share your thoughts on them. And I'll jump in with any questions when you're done. So, first thought: back when you were competing, there was MMA, there was boxing, there was kickboxing. For the most part, as far as high-level combat sports, that was it. And there was Olympics, wrestling, judo, so on. But for high-level professional careers, that was it. Now we have MMA fighters getting into boxing match with boxers. We have social media influencers challenging MMA fighters to boxing matches. We have bare knuckles boxing fights. Even in Burma, we have the World Lethway, Robin Black commentating the sport with 9 limbs where you can headbutt on your feet, right? So this is a lot more than was around when you were competing. Is all of this great, or is some of it kind of a circus type of atmosphere that you don't think is helping with the opportunities out there?
You forgot the 4-on-4 in Poland MMA matches.
That's
and the
right.
3-on-1 MMA matches they have in Poland now too. So
that's right. The 4-on-4, and what was the last one you said?
3-on-1.
There we go. Oh my God.
You guys had 3-on-1 like 2 weeks ago.
Oh man.
So here's the deal.
All right.
We're at the time now where everybody's trying to make a buck. So everybody believes they have the new best idea.
Right.
Right. So there's a story from Rochester, New York. They talk about this guy back in the day. For those of you that are too young, may not remember, they have things called ditto machines, and that's how you make copies. A ditto machine. It basically was this big cylinder that had a crap ton of ink in it. You'd put the thing you wanted to have copied.
Yep.
Into a different machine. It would make basically like a photograph imprint of it, and then you would spin this ditto machine around by hand like an arm crank.
Yep.
You spin this thing around, and if you wanted 25 copies, you'd make 25 circles. That's how it worked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this guy walks in with this idea to take photographs and have them digitally made into a different thing. Okay, and make copies. Like he has this thing of doing new photographs.
Yep.
He took it to his boss. His boss is like, "This will never work. It'll never be a thing. It's always going to be bad. Like, this doesn't make any sense. No one's going to gravitate to it." So he leaves and he starts Xerox. And that's how Xerox came about. But the problem is he brought that to Kodak and said, "Hey, boss at Kodak, this thing will be the newest thing." And Kodak turned their back on this Xerox machine, right?
Yep.
That guy, I want to say his name is Xerox, but I don't freaking know. And mind you, this is a thing that gets told to you when you're a kid walking around Rochester.
Yep.
He came up with the new best thing. After that, everybody tried to copy. There's a bunch of other people that try to copy stuff. A lot of stuff we don't remember because it didn't work. A lot of the things that are going on right now are trying to copy the UFC and what Dana White did.
Yeah.
Now, Scott Coker's got it right, because he is not trying to reinvent the wheel. He's not trying to reinvent what's going on. He's just doing the exact same thing the UFC did before. He's on a network. He was on network television. Now he's on, Paramount Plus and has the pay-per-views and all that stuff. And he is pushing himself into a place where he is doing the exact same thing, just a little bit better, and is working on getting the better fighters. And right now the UFC wins because they have the better fighters as a whole.
Right.
Not saying, AJ McKee is a guy you got to pay attention to in Bellator. Like, he's probably one of the best featherweights there is in the world, like hands down in any organization. Yep. And Bellator has them right now, but they need a bigger roster. Okay, that's fair enough. It's okay because they're getting there, and it's happening because we refed a couple weeks ago. They had all these great fights. Well, the moment bare knuckle boxing came out, like somebody came with that idea and they started promoting it, and I forget where the first one was, like maybe Wyoming or something. I think was where the first bare knuckle boxing was. That company has since gone under.
Yes.
And those other companies have come up. So these are things that people forget about. Everyone's trying to reinvent the wheel. They're trying to make their mark on a new thing. I got to be honest with you. None of these guys are going to do very well. It's just not. It's just because now, if you have, remember when there was NFL and what was the one that Doug Flutie played for?
The CFL in Canada.
No, USFL.
Oh, USFL. Yes, I do.
Before he went to Canada. So
yes.
So right now we have Canadian Football League, NFL, and we have European Football League, right? We have these three leagues that kind of basically all feed the NFL.
Yes.
But the USFL wanted to be their own separate organization. They wanted to be their own deal, right? They wanted to do their own thing. And so they tried to be a rival league. Well, they did it wrong. It's just like this thing with the rock just bought that went under, that McMahon started. What is that? Whatever the hell that thing is.
XFL,
but it's the same thing. They're trying to
XFL,
do it a little bit differently. They're trying to make it different. Well, it's not enough different for us really to want to pay attention. So now all it's doing is it's splitting all the eyeballs.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's too many things going on now. Like just this last weekend, just for me, this is just talking about for me. There's a UFC that was on TV, and I'm working the XFL here in Vegas, Sean Merriman's organization.
Right.
And I'm refereeing that. So there's two fights going on at once.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm just one person. Now imagine it happening to 20 million people that are all trying to watch this sport. Right. There's 9 things going on at once. What are they going to watch?
Yeah, it's hard to.
Bellator got smart and went early. You know, they started on like Thursday nights, whatever, and then they moved to Friday nights, and then they're kind of always Friday night.
Right.
And you know, sometimes on Saturdays, but usually it's Fridays because they want to conflict. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense because now there's going to be more eyeballs on them because they're on a Friday night and they're basically on basic cable, so it's basically free TV. Right. Mm-hmm. All these other things, you know, like. You know, and PFL is doing great too. I don't want to forget about them because my buddy Ray Cooper is getting ready to fight again for the title.
Hawaii.
He's fighting McDonald, which is going to be a tough fight for both guys. I don't care who he's watching. That's a barn burner for both guys.
Absolutely.
And their PFL is doing it smart as well. They're doing a tournament, which is making people pay attention. Like you want to pay attention, right? PFL did the tournament, Bellator did the tournament. Now you see like they're taking the great ideas and throwing away all the bad ideas.
Yep.
So. We're getting to a point now where we talked about UFC being saturating the market. Where they were doing Tuesday night fights, Dana White's Contender Series or whatever on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Then they had the Ultimate Fighter or whatever on Wednesday. Then you had weigh-ins on Friday. Then you had a fight on Saturday. Where there's a fight at a pay-per-view. We're talking about just the UFC was saturating the market. There's too many things going on in the market right now, just with one organization.
Yeah.
Now all these other things are going on. The market's saturated. It's getting wrung dry. Is what's happening, right? Like there's so much now in the market.
Yeah.
Where do you go? And people ask me all the time, "Did you see this? Did you see this?" No, I didn't see it. Did you watch the Pinnacle fight? No, I didn't see it. Why not? Because there's 5 other fights I got.
Right. That's right.
You know, I don't have time for bare-knuckle boxing. I'm sorry. I want to see Paige VanZant and Rachel Ostovich fight it out. I wanted to see that fight. I just couldn't do it. I had too many things going on.
Right. There's so much.
You know, I'm not going to pay whatever it was. I don't know what the pay-per-view was, but I'm not going to pay call it $50. I'm not going to pay the $50 for the 1 or 2 fights I want to see on the card.
Right.
When I have a whole other card I have to watch, whether it's for free or not, doesn't matter. Like it's just like it's so hard. To do that.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like so much content out there that it is kind of like fragmenting the audience. Like there's not enough, you know, and it seems like the organizations kind of were trying to have everything on a separate day, but so many people end up wanting to have their stuff Friday and Saturday that you do end up getting a glut of stuff on those days. So it's a bad thing because of the fact that there's so much content now that the fan can't really keep up unless he or she wants to break their bank by shelling out $500 a month in pay-per-view combat sports events. You really can't see it. Is there any positive aspect of though for the fighters? Maybe do you think as far as the options?
There's other options now. We're getting a more fair market share for a long time. And this is the reason for one of the lawsuits that the fighters or the other fighters were putting against the UFC is that they had marketed and monopolized the entire market, so they couldn't go anywhere else. You couldn't renegotiate a contract because who's going to pick you up? You know what I'm saying? Like if the UFC wanted to get rid of John Jones, I'm just using him because I just read something about John. Something out there about John doesn't want to fight Stipe. Adam Henry, the comedian, he put out, "I don't want to fight Stipe. I want the toughest match in the world." Excuse me. John Winklejohn said John Jones does not want to fight Stipe because he wants to have the toughest fight of his career ever. fight a clean drug test. And so that was the joke.
Yeah.
And that's what I read just before I came on with you.
That's funny. I love that. Nice.
Well, yeah, it's funny, right?
Yep.
But if the UFC want to get rid of John Jones right now, Bellator obviously is right on top. They're gonna call right away. As soon as they hear it, they got 15 people in the office that all know John, that all know one of the brothers that play. You know, they're gonna jump on board because Bellator is Viacom. It's a big company. There's a lot of people involved in there, and they know exactly how to get a hold of John. He gets released by the UFC. If this happened, Bellator's gonna pick him up right away. Boom, they're gonna call him. One out of Singapore is gonna call. Two, they're gonna call right away. Bang. These are just two MMA groups gonna call right away trying to get a hold of John. They want to sign him, and they're going to be a bidding war. It's going to be a bunch of money, and everyone's going to figure it out. But now John's got a place to go. He's not out of the UFC. He doesn't mean he's out of fighting. He's just out of the UFC.
Right.
What used to be when you're out of the UFC, you basically were down to the B level, C level, D level fights.
You were out of luck.
And you went from making like 35,000 a fight to making 3,500 a fight.
Right. Exactly.
You know, you're like, dude, this is like, it sucks. Like there's no competitive process.
Right.
Now we're getting competition. Add in bare knuckle boxing. Add in, look at Tyron. He's getting ready to fight Jake Paul or Logan Paul or one of those idiots.
Yeah.
He's getting ready to fight one of them. And to be honest with you, the Paul brother, from what I've seen, I can only go off of what I've seen. I cannot go off of who he is as a person. I don't hang out with him. I'm not at his house. I'm at his training camps. I can only go off the fights I've seen. He's got a pretty good shot against Tyron.
Yes.
So now we're looking at this. Yes, Tyron's going to make the most amount of money he's ever made, but now he's in a fight that it may not be winnable, or maybe easily winnable. We don't know. Like we thought that Asko was going to beat him up, and he got starched in 15 seconds or whatever it was. So it's like, yeah, man, like this is now it's interesting because now Tyron can make a lot of money. He's got a Haral that can, whatever it is, pay down some debt, pay off a car, pay off a house, whatever it is. But he's gonna have a lot of money at the end of this fight, and pays for his kids' tuition, put it away. I mean, whatever he's gonna do, he's gonna do with it. But he's got a spot now to make the most amount of money he's ever made in one fight. And then you get, I think it's Logan. I can't tell the difference between the two of them. I don't know. But the whatever one's fighting Tyron, he's talking about, fighter pay, and he keeps going after Dana and all this. He's kind of got a point when he's getting guys that are named that he's selling out arenas. They're selling, top numbers on pay-per-views. Maybe not $1 million, $1 million, $1 million, $2 million like McGregor does, but they're getting pretty close. With a guy and they're paying him the most amount of money he's ever made. He's kind of got a point. It's like, these guys are coming to me, but also Dana's got a point. Like I would have paid that guy more if he was better. That's why he's not with me anymore. So it's like it's a very slippery slope because like you kind of got a point, but he's also got a point.
Without a doubt. Speaking of that fight, I think there is definitely a competitive aspect to the matchup of Jake Paul against Tyron Woodley. Obviously, people thought that Ben Askren had a chance just because of what a rugged guy he was, the fact that he had taken shots from some pretty good MMA strikers when he was in Bellator and won championship and in the UFC, and him just being a generally more rugged guy than Jake Paul was going to be enough. It turned out it wasn't, but he also didn't have any sort of skill with striking. Now, Tyron is older. And a lot of the younger millennials, I think, look at Tyron's record and is like, oh, all these guys are beating him. Jake Paul makes light work out of Tyron. But I don't really think that can be assumed because I think that the big question is what kind of punishment can Jake Paul take before he buckles, right?
Yeah. The thing we haven't seen yet, he hasn't been touched. So that, he's fought some, broke down rapper or broke down basketball player.
Right.
Like I get those two guys confused. I forget who fights who.
Right.
But these guys have really been fighting bums, and they're picking their fights, which, by the way, is what they do in boxing.
Right.
You pick your fights. So this is the reason why a lot of these guys are really good at what they do, or really fast, or have these like 10-0 records. In Golden Boy, like I'm signed with Golden Boy Boxing with De La Hoya, and I'm 10-0. And I've had but they look at the guy's record of who they fought. Like you add that in there, all of a sudden you're like, well, these guys you're fighting are very good. They're handpicking guys. That'll be tough for you, make you showboat your skills, but you're going to get beat up. Well, that's what the Pauls are doing. They're picking their opponents that they think they can beat. Now, of course, they're looking at Tyron's last couple of fights, boring and slow and really not hitting anybody and taking his time. And then you see him get beat up, get beat up by Usman. You see him get all these like his last couple of fights.
Yep.
That's what they're looking at.
Yep.
They're forgetting that all of a sudden you got a guy that is going to throw 8 punches at you with as much power as a Mack truck.
Yep.
And if one of them slightly touches you, you're going to be limped. And it's going to be, now can I keep my feet about me, get my hands up, have enough wherewithal not to get knocked out completely, but I'm going to be on chicken legs running around the ring.
Right.
And Tyron can do that to you, but also too, Tyron gets tired because he only throws bombs. He won't sit behind his jab.
Right.
So unless he's spending time sitting behind his jab or sitting by his lead hook, it's not going to work. He's going to get exhausted come second round. 3 minutes is, it's 5 minutes, 3 minutes. Like, he's got more energy, but it's a lot harder because now you've only got 2 things coming at you. There's only a left hand and a right hand coming at you, and that's it. So it's much harder. You think a lot of people that don't box think, oh yeah, it's easier than MMA. 100% it's easier. You only got to worry about one thing, because we have to worry about those things too in MMA. But in boxing, when you only have to worry about those 2 things, you use more energy worrying about those 2 things. Right. It's almost like the less you have to worry about, the more energy it takes from you.
Good point. Very good point.
So now we're looking at Tyron in the second and third round getting tired. Now is how much of a game is it? Is he really getting tired? Is he playing a game? Like, we don't know, because we haven't seen him training. We haven't seen what he's been doing. We're not sure what's going to happen with this. So this fight is very interesting because of the timeline that it's happening. And right now within our sport and within our time frame of combat sports, it's the right time for this to happen. I mean, believe me, if one of the Pauls would have called me out, 100% would have went to training camp and fought these fools, because I knew without even blinking an eye, the conversation is going to start over 6 figures. Right. That's the conversation. And more than likely, we're going to get to 7 figures relatively easily. And I haven't fought in 10 years, and I'm a nobody. So for me, you're going to get someplace around 7 figures. Like, you're going to get real close to that number, where it's just below or a little bit above. That's what's going to happen. What are these other guys going to get? Like a Leon Machida or Anderson Silva, or all these other guys making the jump. They're making more money doing this in their twilight years, in their retirement. Right. It's like a retirement song. Right. And that's, are you old enough to remember when everyone would go to Vegas and like, oh, I'm gonna go see this guy in Vegas. I'm gonna go see Cher in Vegas. I'm gonna go see Celine Dion in Vegas. Yep. And it was supposed to be like you had to hurry up and go because they were retiring. Yep. That's how you knew they're kind of going away, because they went to Vegas. Mm-hmm. Now they got these stinking long-term residencies there now, and they're playing there for like 5 or 10 years. Like, no one goes to die to Vegas anymore. Right. It's almost like this is what this boxing's becoming for MMA guy. Yeah. This is my retirement. This is my retirement tour. Like, I'm getting out of combat sports. This is what I'm gonna do next. Yeah. And they're gonna fade away with their money. I mean, look at Paige Van Zandt. She made $1 million. Yep. Yep. For 4 fights, right? 2 fights? Right, I think. And she's got 2. I don't know what her contract was exactly, but yeah, she's 0-2 so far. Yeah. And she made $1 million guaranteed. Yeah, yeah. It's amazing. The money is there, and that leads into, like we just said, the bare knuckles boxing. It's like 2 different options for fighters. And the interesting thing is, it seems like for the influencer fights, they're not going up against some 28 or 30-year-old guy in the UFC who's on the top of his game, nor would that person be allowed to get out of his contract, someone like Vicente Luque or something like that, because he would, he would go in. Imagine. Yeah. Imagine. He would beat both Paul brothers in the same night, both of them in less than 2 minutes, I would think. And he's an MMA fighter, but he's in his prime, And so these guys aren't being invited against the Pauls. And not only that, but a lot of these guys aren't going to bare knuckles. But the guys who are having the opportunities are guys that are 35, 38, 40, who are no longer on top. And it's great to see them get these opportunities. Bare knuckle boxing, what do you think about that? I mean, in reality, I think that BKFC, which is the one organization here, and I know in England, I think they have BKB, but my friend, who I'm sure you know, Chris Lights Out Lytle, is doing an amazing job with commentary over there. And what do you think about that? The fact that there's actually, I think, some MMA fighters that are going back and forth, but they're doing pretty good. What do you think about that? But they're also, low-level fighters. They're not high-level fighters or guys in their primes. They're not top 10 in their weight class in the world. Right. In their primes, still trying to do this fight game. Like, they're not doing that. But these are guys that are. I'm not going to say low level, because no MMA fighter is really a low level. Right. I mean, he's every guy that fights professionally is of a particular level. Right. But he's definitely down at the bottom. Like, they're not. These aren't guys that are trying to come through and they're not ones that are going to be locked up by contracts, which is why they're able to go back and forth. I mean, if they were that good, they'd be locked up. And that's
exactly. Usually it's not top 20 guys, although some guys were at one point, but no longer.
Yeah.
Would that have been something, because I know you said you would have considered with no problem the social media influencer guys, but let's say we go back in time 15 years and they had the bare knuckle boxing and they approached you. Would that have been something you might have thought about?
It all depends on the money. And see, that's the thing. Like, bare knuckle boxing did approach me, you know, when they first started. And I think it might have been the organization that went under that kind of approached me.
Right.
And the number they gave me wouldn't even get me out of bed in the morning.
No, right.
The number they offered was like so low. Like, I was like, dude, I make that every month on set. Like, why would I stop doing what I'm doing to do this to make the same money? This is dumb.
No.
And on set, I have so many pads on. I have so many things on. Like, I did a yesterday. I fell off a 40-foot bridge, like a gangway onto the ground. I did it 3 times. It's fine.
Right.
Like,
nice.
it's landing in the pads. Like, it doesn't matter, right?
Beautiful.
So why would I take the same money to walk in and go get punched in the face for real and get my eyes swollen, my nose put on the side of my head, and even if I win, it's still like, it doesn't matter, man. You saw Paige Van Zandt's photos of her hands.
Yeah.
After that fight, like, they were all jacked up. You know, when her hands are back, they're fine now, but you know, it doesn't make sense about making money. You pay me $1 million, yeah, my hands are jacked up, it's fine. I can ride that out.
Right, exactly. And, you know, I'm glad that you do have films and all the other stuff that you've worked hard to get a part of. I think a lot of these fighters that jump in that don't really have any other option, or at least they don't want to do a 9-to-5 job. But it's interesting, MMA fighters have been really impressing in bare knuckles. And even though these aren't top 20 ranked guys, is that just because of the rugged nature of training for MMA? How strong you got to be.
And I feel bad saying this, but the reality of it is that boxing is easier than MMA.
Yeah.
That's the reality. Because MMA, one part of MMA is boxing. That's just one part of MMA is boxing. In boxing, there's only one thing that they do is box.
Right.
Okay. Now you can be a brawler and you can be sweet science. There's guys that are great, and I sparred with some college kids when I was a pro in the UFC in my prime, and they're beating the crap out of me. Just boxing, just doing body boxing. I was getting the living crap kicked out of me. And there's nothing I can do about it. They're just better than I am.
Right.
So yes, is boxing easier than MMA? Absolutely. But when you spend the time from 6 until you're 18 training MMA, you spend the time from 6 to 18 doing just boxing, and you put 2 18-year-olds together and have them fight, the boxing 18-year-old is going to be better because he's done the one thing the entire time.
Right.
That's all he's done.
Right.
Now you will have the anomaly. You'll have that one anomaly that'll show up that actually they can outbox him, you know, and that's how it always works. Majority of the time, the guy that does one thing very well. Bruce Lee talks about it. You know, I don't fear the guy that owns that works 1,000 kicks. I fear the guy that practiced one kick 1,000 times.
Right.
That's the guy that scares you. It's like, so this, you know, in boxing, if I'm gonna, you know, when you talk about like Randy Couture fighting James Toney, you don't, right? It was James Toney.
Yeah, it was. Yep, it was.
He didn't stand on a boxer. Let me take him down. He's like, he spent 50 years learning how to box. I'm gonna stand on a box with him? No, that's dumb. Take him down. So he shot a low single, which Randy never shoots.
Yep.
Shot a low single, put him on his ass, submitted him. That was it. Fight's over. You know, everyone's like, oh my God, you're so amazing, but you're incredible. It's like, no, like boxers can't stop takedowns.
Right.
But if you make a boxer box another boxer, now we got a real fight.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the rules of the engagement. So yeah, it's like, you go back to the Pauls real quick. They're not fighting boxers.
No.
You see what's happening? They're not calling out boxers. They now have a record well enough. They have a record that's good enough.
Right.
That they can start fighting professionals here in California.
Right.
Like Andy Foster's told them, if you want to fight a professional fighter with 3 fights as well, you can fight a professional boxer. Like, why keep fighting? But it doesn't make any sense because a guy that's 3-0 in boxing is not going to bring in enough money.
No, exactly, and they don't want, and it's all about the money. And Frank, we got about 5 minutes left. I got a bunch more questions. Let me throw them at. Let me get some quick answers. I'm going to show them rapid fire. So Anderson Silva, a man that I would bet you probably fought on the same card as, or did you miss?
I fought in the same tournament. He got knocked out.
Yep, nice. That's right. That was that one where Yeah, was that a Pride?
In Hawaii. Yeah. I know it was in Hawaii for
Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl?
Yeah, Super Bowl. I think so. I think you're right. So Anderson came in, looked really good against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. In fact, it was, I think, embraced as a victory by MMA because you got a 44-year-old or 45-year-old Anderson Silva, and he really looked good. He is scheduled, Adam, for something else now or not yet? Who's he got? Okay, so we can't. It's under wraps what Anderson's going to do next. But question for you, quick answer: What do you think of Anderson's prospects in some of these boxing matchups? Could he beat the Paul brothers? And then the second, okay, and
he can beat the Paul brothers because he's a real boxer. Like Anderson's a real boxer. He's not a brawler.
Nice.
Like, he's not a bad guy. He's a real boxer. He's a guy that's going to loop, and even at 44, it's still going to be hard to hit him. Like when him and Forrest Griffin fought, Forrest was great. He was a great stand-up guy. Couldn't touch him.
Yep.
Like, Arjun got knocked out. That's the same thing with Anderson right now. Yes, he's slower. Yes, he's weaker. Yes, absolutely, he is 44. Father Time is catching him. But he'd be great against these guys. And he'd bring a lot of money in, but also, too, if I'm one of the Paul brothers, I'm not taking that fight.
No, exactly. Now, on the flip side of it, really quick, a lot of people are so impressed with Anderson, they say maybe he beats someone in the 175-pound division or a little bit heavier cruiserweight in boxing who's in the top 30. I think that may be a little bit of a stretch.
That's a stretch because at 40 years old, you have 7 other exams you have to take to pass to be able to fight on the commission.
Oh, okay.
So because now it's age related. So the older you get, the more stuff you have to do to prove that you can fight.
It'd be hard for him to get cleared.
So now you're talking to dealing with all that stuff.
Yeah,
dude, it gets a lot harder. Top 30 is a stretch. I mean, he might be able to pull off. It's Anderson Silva too. Let's not forget. So we can sit here and say top 30 is a stretch, and all of a sudden he's 19th or 18th. And it wouldn't surprise me at all because he's kind of got that skill.
Yeah,
but he's also 44 years old, and all those guys he's fighting are half his age.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a difference. Like half your age is hard. Trust me. When I go and roll, I just try to grab somebody, and it's like the kid's half my age. He's got 1/3 the amount of skill that I have and no knowledge at all about what I'm about to do to him.
Yep.
And I'm like, at the end of the session, I'm like, yeah, good job, kid. I go in the locker room and I lay down for an hour and a half.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I can relate to that. And I was never an elite athlete like you were, or had the skills, but as a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and I'll go in there half the age. Yeah, it sucks because they're doing stuff that we know to do and that you could have done way better than me. But as the years go by, the body doesn't want to do it. And
that's an armbar coming. That's an armbar. That's an armbar.
Yep.
Get out of the way. That's an armbar.
Right.
That's an armbar. Get out of the way.
Yeah.
Tap.
Yep. Doesn't want to do it. Yep. I'm with you. Last quick question. Oscar De La Hoya, Vitor Belfort. Give me maybe like 1 minute on how you think that fight unfolds and what we should look for.
So the difference is that De La Hoya is a real boxer.
Yeah.
Where Silva, he kind of knows. Silva.
Belfort. Yeah.
Belfort kind of knows how to fight boxing, but not really. Like he doesn't really understand how to be in there. And De La Hoya is going to make it so that he's going to miss a lot, hit his arms a lot, get tired, and then come back. And De La Hoya has been in long, drawn-out boxing fights, so he's not scared to go deep.
Right.
Where Vitor gets scared to go deep, and Vitor gets touched a couple times, he might feel that little mental, oh crap, now what? I really got hit hard.
Yeah.
Now what am I going to do? And it's going to be tough to see. But also too, it's a question if De La Hoya shows up.
Right, at 49 years old.
He's 185 pounds.
Yeah.
So what De La Hoya is going to show up at that weight? Yeah.
Speaking about that, I read somewhere that said something like Oscar's going to be 175 and Vitor has to be more than 190. Now, I looked at that at first and I said, they can't be saying Oscar has to be no more than 175 and Vitor no. Okay, so whatever the weight
they're saying because of training camp he's going to drop down to 175, but he weighed 186 a couple days ago.
Okay, so then
so that's all. They're fighting at 185.
Okay.
So Vitor is going to probably weigh 195 or 200, whatever, and it's in California, so they're getting drug tested. So that's the other thing too.
Right.
I talked to. As a matter of fact, I might be reffing on that card.
That would be great.
Sure. Because they're talking about trying to add MMA. If they do add MMA to that card, then I get the call up to go ref it. But because it's right here, it's up the street for me, so it's easy. Where a lot of the other guys are a little bit further away.
What is the venue? What is the venue there? Can you tell us?
Couldn't tell you.
But
is it Forum? Maybe Forum.
It's something like that, but it will be here in Southern Cal because Oscar's a Southern Cal, Golden Boy.
Yeah, he won't go anywhere else. Like that's because
makes sense.
His Golden Boys, yeah.
So Oscar wins easy, or maybe some scary moments.
No, man, you got to remember these are still fights. There's still banana peels out there. People still slipping on grapes. Like you never understand what's going on, and you can be a great boxer in the past, but not have the power or the wherewithal or the want to train hard for this. And it's like, oh, this is Vitor Belfort. Who cares? I'll just kind of do whatever. And if Vitor is like, I am going to win this, I'm going to prove to the world I'm still here, and he's dedicated himself to doing this thing, also we have an interesting fight. You have a guy that really, really knows how to box against a guy that's not going to go away.
Yes.
And now you got a real fight. But if both guys train their asses off, or if Vitor didn't train his ass off, then you got a problem because now Oscar's going to come in and play with him, toy them, mess around with them a little bit like Mayweather did with McGregor. Just going to kind of play with them a little bit, see what happens.
Yep.
And when I want to put them away, I'm going to put them away.
Yes, without a doubt. Well, we know Dana White is cheering seriously for Vitor, not because he loves Vitor, because of how much he hates Oscar,
Yeah.
And
it's like, who do you like?
Yeah.
This guy and anybody fighting Oscar De La Hoya.
Exactly.
Like that's Dana's standpoint.
No matter who it is. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Frank, I really appreciate you, man. What's the best way for people to follow you on social media, and do you make sure people know where you're doing your stunts or what films you're in? And
man, it's so hard. Book of Boba Fett doesn't come out till December, so I'm in that one, all 7 episodes. But you won't even recognize me because I'm a fully covered creature.
Right.
The best thing to do is go to IMDb, International Movie Database, imdb.com. Type in my name, and underneath my name, it's got all the stuff that I'm in, all the stuff that's coming up. It'll tell you future projects and all that stuff on there. And then on social media, it's all Frank Trigg, just one word.
Awesome.
So except for Facebook, I think it's Frank Trigg Host, I think, is the tag I had to get on Facebook.
Awesome. Well, big respect to you. I'm friends with Gene LaBelle, and I know he always likes you. Whenever I mention Frank, he goes, "Twinkle Toes, tell him I said hi." So I'll tell him we talked to you again, but you're an awesome guy, and I'm so glad to see you continuing to thrive and succeed. Generation X, are we still the toughest guys out there, or what?
So far, yeah. So far, no one's beat us.
Without a doubt. Thank you so much, Frank Trigg. Really appreciate you, brother.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.